11 minutes before 9. We'll come back to our conversation about that survey on working from home in just a moment. Now, someone who's not working from home, but hopefully is working from the beach, is, of course, the Prime Minister, away again. He's over in Greece with his family. This as the two people vying to be the next leader of the Conservative Party and, in turn, our Prime Minister, continue to work their way around the country to, in sometimes, I think, the bemusement of around 120,000 Conservative members who will vote for the next man or woman. And one senior politician says enough is enough. They need to actually get back and someone start running the country. I speak of Labour's Shadow Climate Change and Net Zero Secretary Ed Miliband, who joins us now. Why do you want someone back behind their desk, Mr. Miliband? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good to be with you. Well, look, we know we face an energy bills emergency. We've seen the biggest fall in real pay this today since records began. We know this is a cost of living crisis, and energy bills is the biggest part of it. On August the 26th, the cap is going to go up, and then the direct debits will start going up. You know that. And the convenience of the Conservative Party on the September the 5th is not the relevant here. What we need from the candidates is for them to come forward. Labour has set out a clear plan to freeze energy prices. We faced a choice, which is to say, do we allow £4,000 energy bills, Nick? And more than 50% of our country plunged into fuel poverty. We say no. We set out a fully funded plan. I want those candidates who want to be the Prime Minister, this is the biggest issue the country faces, to come forward and tell us what they're going to do. I mean, I believe that the only viable option is Labour's plan, and ideally they'd say, we're going to do Labour's plan, we're going to do this plan, and then we would reassure the public, and then the energy companies wouldn't put up their direct debits after the 26th of August.
Not everyone is a cheerleader for the Labour plan. You'll be aware of that, Mr. Miliband. The Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies said yesterday Labour's plan would cost as much as the COVID furlough scheme were it to extend for a full year. That's £69 billion you've just spent, not £29 billion. Your colleagues have just spent, not £29 billion, Mr. Miliband.
Well, look, I think we face a choice on this, Nick, which is some people will say it's not sustainable to act. I say it's not sustainable to allow bills to go to £4,000. I just want to focus on this point, Nick.
So you would be prepared to take that? It is a furlough too, second furlough.
What I'm saying to you is, yes, this is an emergency. The furlough came in response to a different emergency, but that was an emergency, obviously. And we will do what is necessary to protect people. Because we cannot tolerate a situation, Nick, where bills go from £1,300 a year ago to £4,000. People will be, we're not just talking. I had someone in my constituency, Nick, a midwife, email me. She works, her husband works, they're not on benefits. But, they are going to be, she was beside herself with worry about this. And so I'm all in favour of targeting help in most circumstances, but there comes a moment when you've got to recognise that the scale of a crisis is such that this reaches quite high up the income scale, and then it is right to act. So I believe we've set out a funded plan. We'll come back before April and set out another funded plan which deals with the emergency, and I think that's the right thing to do. And by the way, I think there's a strong chance, and my hope is that the Tory candidates end up in the same conclusion, because I don't think this is a sustainable situation in terms of where bills are going.
And just finally, I'm not for a moment minimising the impact, and indeed the Daily Mirror has a heartbreaking story of a mum sadly reaching the end of her days who hasn't got enough money to take her kids out. So I get the impact. Yeah. I just want to make sure that when the IFS says it could cost as much as furlough, you are signed up to that.
Well, so far, in terms of the 6 months, it's cost £29 billion. And when we come forward with future plans, we will set out the costings of it. But I just want to make this other point, Nick, because it's very relevant to what you're saying. We sometimes talk about this as if the money we're paying in energy bills disappears somewhere. It doesn't disappear. It goes to the oil and gas companies. Part of the funding of this plan, a significant part of the funding of this plan, is taxing the oil and gas companies, a windfall tax on the oil and gas companies, beefing up that windfall tax. And so we face political choices here. There are always people who come along and say nothing can be done. We heard that during the COVID. You can't subsidise wages, you can't act. I don't agree with the people who say you can't act. I say sometimes you have to recognise the scale of an emergency and you have to act.
Is there a danger if you increase windfall taxes on companies, they could cut back on long-term investment programs for energy efficiency because they might want to set aside cash that they'll subsequently need to pay off taxes. That is an argument, at least, Mr. Miliband.
It is the argument some people make, but it was rather blown apart by the companies themselves. You'll remember this, Nick, because Mr. Bernard Looney came along and was asked if there was a windfall tax, would it affect your investment plans? And he said no. And, when you've got BP themselves, he's the boss of BP, when you've got BP themselves saying it wouldn't affect our plans, it's pretty hard to sort of say, well, yeah, we can't do this. We're gonna have to leave people with £4,000 energy bills because it's going to affect their investment when BP says it won't affect their investment.
We're talking about energy. We haven't even talked about water yet. Mr. Miliband, is the solution actually to renationalise these services?
Well, the issue about that is it would cost a massive amount of money to buy out those shareholders. But if what you're saying to me is this is a terrible situation, what we see in the water companies, the bonuses, what is happening, absolutely. And we need a massive shake-up of regulation. I don't think they should be getting these bonuses. I can't, it sort of seems absolutely extraordinary that they're getting these bonuses at a time when we see all these problems in the industry. This is a long-standing problem, what we've seen in the water industry, and we will fix it. But I think it's got to start with regulation.
How will you fix it, Mr. Miliband? I mean, renationalisation, or what will you do?
Well, I think what I'm saying
I point you
is
to Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there's a different system, and it seems to work better.
Yeah, and we are looking at that, but I think it's got to start with proper regulation of the service. There is massive questions for the regulator to answer in this and government to answer. How is this continuing to be allowed to happen? We've known about these problems in the water industry for a very long time. How is this kind of long-standing problem being allowed to go on and on and on? So that's where it starts. And the thing I say on ownership, on all issues of public ownership, and Keir Starmer is right about this, is that's got to be looked at, but it's always got to be affordable, because we've been talking earlier, Nick, about money and the fact that we're having to pay out with our fully funded plan for energy. Any money we put forward, it's got to be affordable. Any plans we have, including on ownership.
Lastly, I won't need to tell you there's more rail and underground in London disruption due this Thursday to Saturday. Your colleague, Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves, has said that Labour MPs should stay away from picket lines. Is she right? Would you go to a picket line, Mr. Miliband?
No, I think my job is to, as someone who wants to be in government, is to help sort out disputes. That's where my focus is. So that I agree with Rachel on this. I think there is a deeper issue, though, here, Nick, which is I think we all understand the disruption that people are going to face across different services when people go on strike. But there's a reason why these disputes are all happening, including in industries like in BT, where there haven't been disputes for 35 years. And it's because of this cost of living crisis that we face. People are really, really suffering. People are suffering across our country. And I think that explains a lot of what we are seeing. And therefore, getting at the roots of this, including with action on energy, is absolutely a crucial function of what government needs to do.
Always enjoy our time together. Thanks very much, Mr. Miliband. Ed Miliband, Shadow Climate and Net Zero Secretary, appearing here on LBC 2 minutes before 9 the time.